afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our first Paxton Eyp Talks. We have a massive and fantastic privilege today to hear our 7 amazing students who are representing Paxton at the weekend at the Eyp Parliament. They're absolutely having practice today of their Eyp talk. Can you give them a massive round of applause, please? So now I'm going to pass you over to Miss Waite, who knows everything about EYP, and she's going to give you a bit of an insight into what's going to happen this weekend and what the kind of topics are for the talk today.
So welcome everybody to our first EYP Paxton Talks event, which I'm very proud to introduce to you all. The European Youth Parliament is a forum. It's a forum for debate about some of the most pressing issues facing us globally in the 21st century. It mirrors the European Youth Parliament, where politicians from across the EU form part of different committees, for example, human rights, culture and education, transport and legal affairs. This weekend, our Paxton EYP team here will be working with students from across schools in Valencia. They'll be engaging in team building, they will be doing committee work about a wealth of different topics, and they'll be debating their resolutions in a formal but very exciting and hopefully good fun General Assembly on the Sunday. Today they're going to give you a taster of their topics that they're going to be working on this weekend, and you'll be listening to all sorts of intellectual ideas which the students have been really busy researching. And they've only had their topics for about 6 days, I think, so they've been working really, really hard. We're going to open the event with Luna, who will be joining the Committee on Women's Rights and Gender Equality, or FEM, so please give a warm welcome to Luna.
Hi everyone, my name is Luna Euler and I am a part of the Committee on Women's Rights and Gender Equality, or FEM. Our committee is focused on addressing the main issues women face on a day-to-day basis, like the gender pay gap and sexual harassment, and finding solutions to said problems so that more women can hold positions of power that they deserve to be in. The 3 main ways that the EU can handle these issues are education, pay transparency, and workplace equity. Firstly, it is essential that our young girls and boys understand that although women face sexism throughout their lives, this doesn't have to be the case, because at the end of the day, both women and men are capable of the same things. This is why the EU should put even more funding into education programs for children about gender equality throughout the member states. But this education shouldn't end at the end of secondary school. Businesses should also have in-company HR organized programs to educate their workers about the challenges women face and how they can be more respectful towards their female colleagues. Secondly, the pay gap between men and women is still very much present and shocking. It is estimated that for every dollar a man makes, a woman makes 49 cents. In order to incentivize companies to pay their employees equally, companies should be transparent about how they would pay a certain employee from the get-go, so that women will reject offers from companies with sexist paying practices. Lastly, although workplace equality is essential, equity is just as important. There are certain issues, particularly regarding childcare, in which women are at a disadvantage biologically. It is for this reason that workplaces need to ensure that their female employees are treated well in regards to the family leave that they, unlike men, are physically required to take, or even pay leave for particularly debilitating periods. Every company needs to decide how they will treat their employees equally, whilst also addressing uniquely feminine needs. The battle for equality in the workplace has been going on for a long time, and there's still a long way to go. But I am confident in the abilities of the European Union, and I believe we can reach a truly equitable workplace in the near future. I'm very passionate about this issue, and I am very much looking forward to discussing it with my committee colleagues this weekend. Thank you.
And next we're going to have Mara, who's going to come and speak to us about the Transport Committee, who's going to present her proposals to us.
If I asked everybody in this room how you get to school or work every day, most of you would say you get by bus or car. If I asked you why, many of you would say it's because it's the most efficient way. because the transportation system around us has been built for cars. If you look around, there's not a lot of bike paths. The public transport is unreliable, and everything is far away, so it's inconvenient. But why does it matter what form of transportation we use? That's what we're going to be discussing in the Valencia Eyp session. With 70% of Europe's population living in urban areas and 60% of Europeans viewing congestion as a problem affecting mobility, we have to find a solution on how to ensure safe, fast, and clean transportation for all. Whilst researching, I realized that most issues led to the same problem: pollution. I found that in the past 30 years, we have witnessed an increase in global car sales. And even though since the pandemic, sales have decreased, the car population in Europe still remains persistent. Eurostat showed that in 2020, there was one car for every 2 people living in the European Union. And according to the EU, around 80% of the population will be living in an urban area by the end of 2050. This will have an inevitable effect on increasing traffic congestion, considered to be the most severe problem affecting mobility and pollution within the big European cities. To solve this problem, the EU is working on numerous policies and resolutions to decrease traffic congestion and transform the European road network into a safe, accessible, fast, and clean one. Several European countries are now opting on investing to promote public transportation and cycling in order to obtain car-free zones and reduce congestion. Creating a European road network is now becoming a top priority for the European Union. When finishing my research, I became invested in learning about what Spain had been doing to combat these issues. For example, in Pontevedra, they decided to pedestrianize the whole city and allow only essential vehicles to enter into the city center. According to the mayor, there has not been any fatal accidents for the past 11 years. And the pollution has been reduced to half a ton per person per year. And the quality of life has increased tremendously. This scheme has proven to be successful. And many European cities are now contemplating on incorporating this into their city plans. So, now with this information, what do you think Valencia could do to combat this issue? Have you ever thought about what this school could do to reduce this problem? And how do you think you can contribute to this issue? That's what we'll be talking in the European Youth Parliament. Thank you very much.
And let's give a round of applause for Anna, who's going to come and talk to us about an issue that's even affecting the structure of the European Union itself, which is about corruption. Yeah.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for coming. In today's speech, I will be discussing the topic of corruption. Political corruption is defined as the use of power by government officials or their network contacts for illegitimate private gain. Put your hand up if you believe that the EU exists, believe that corruption in the EU exists as of right now. If you have put up your hand, then you're correct, as political corruption is a large concern in European countries. In fact, 68% of Europeans believe that corruption is widespread in their countries, and 41% think that it has increased in recent years. Corruption is harmful to society. It constitutes a threat to security, as it enables and drives organized crime, terrorism, and other forms of crime, including money laundering, which is the transfer of money that has been made illegal. In some extreme cases, it may even involve drug trafficking. Moreover, it also depletes national wealth. The betterment of the communities and societies are compromised for the benefit of the profit of some officials, therefore leads to the misuse of national resources. Corruption is estimated to cost the European Union between 179 to 999 billion euros per year, amounting to up to 6% of its GDP. A great example of how corruption can impact the US is the ex-vice president of the European Parliament, Eyp Talks, was detained along with 4 others in corruption probe, where they now remain in jail. Qatar and Morocco allegedly paid bribes to help soften European criticism, and this scandal was the lining that could be firming of the US transparency This is just one scandal of many, and sadly, corruption in the EU is much more common than the public is aware of. But as you know, every problem has a solution, but it depends whether the EU wants to solve it or not. This is why my committee believes that immediate actions should be enforced to combat this fast-rising problem that is rapidly gaining more ground. The European Union should implement a series of steps that focus on improving financial management, and strengthening the role of auditing agencies will help in curbing corruption. This will include transparency and particularly budgeting by local communities and local governments. The Commission, which is responsible for drawing up proposals for new European legislation, has now proposed a directive that will approximate national crimes on corruption. In this way, it has done with some of the other Euro crimes. This is why the Commission should propose a directive, as this committee believes that corruption is arguably is equally or more important as Euro crimes, which are often offenses that have to be dealt with in the EU level because of their serious nature. To sum it up, corruption is the evil biggest of any societies. All necessary steps must be taken to eliminate this evil. Not only the ones with power, but at times even the weaker section of the society tend to be a culprit of this. This committee hopes that from now on, every individual will strictly oppose and prevent corrupt activities from occurring anywhere around us. Thus, this will ensure the complete socio-economic and political development of our society and a country as a large. Thank you for listening. I hope this speech impacted your view on corruption and has educated you on your opinions of corruption and the faults of this system.
And Lucas is going to come and speak to us now. He's going to be talking about investment and how we can improve investment in businesses that are being more sustainably friendly. Welcome, Lucas.
Good afternoon. It is of no wonder that in the globalized world that we live in which investments are the main drivers of our economy, every financial transaction has a great impact on our surroundings, and the European Union's goal is to control and reduce these consequences. First of all, I'd like to clarify to the younger students that when someone invests their money, they lend it to a business hoping that they'll grow and make more money in the future, so that they can return their initial investment and make some profit. Now that this is explained, I'd like you to think in what ways can your investment have a negative consequence on our surroundings. Some of you may say that this is impossible, since the stocks or shares in which we invest are just numbers on a computer screen, right? Well, yes, but at the same time, no. Because the fact that we've made that investment isn't detrimental. It's what the company does with that money. When I say that these spendings can have negative consequences, I'm talking about global warming, but also about the loss of biodiversity or the surpassing of the barrier of human rights. There being so many aspects in which an investment can have a negative consequence means that the EU uses the ESG criteria to classify, trace, and tackle these issues. So, what does ESG mean? E stands for environment, which refers to a company's sustainability. And this is all about recycling, CO2 emissions, energy consumptions, raw material usage, etc. S stands for social, which focuses on the equal pay gap between genders and the workers' absences. And lastly, G stands for governance, and this is how the companies run, how they spend their funding, and what is its leadership structure. When a business meets these standards, they'll be greatly benefited because they'll increase their customer loyalty and therefore improve their competitivity, because people are much more likely to support projects with which they share moral values. Furthermore, this reduces the risk of being sanctioned, as releasing too much CO2, for example, is enough reason to be fined by the government. However, despite all of these advantages, many companies decide not to be ESG compliant, since it may be more expensive in the first instance. Therefore, the EU has many initiatives going right now to get as many businesses as possible to meet them. For example, here in Spain, businesses with over 250 employees must publish annually a public ESG disclosure which is basically a report in which they explain how they tackle the ESG issues in their company. Overall, I believe that this approach is okay. However, I think that there are better resolutions to the issue. For example, the EU could create a business analyst committee in order to help companies in their path towards sustainability, and also to aid ones which are already ESG compliant to boost their revenue. Moreover, tax incentives could be offered by the government to people investing in ESG funds, which would encourage more people to do so. In conclusion, I'd like to stress on the importance of investing our money wisely, and in the fact that we should never be putting our greediness before our planet. Thank you for listening.
We're now going to hear from Camilla, who's going to be talking about human trafficking, which is one of the more sensitive topics that we've got that she's going to be looking at. Thank you.
So, I would like to tell you all a story about stolen dreams and stolen chances. This story is about a 43-year-old man named Ali. He's from Egypt, and he works in a market to support his family. One particular, quite ordinary day, he's approached by a man. This man instills hope in Ali. He paints a beautiful, irresistible picture of France, saying, if you wanted to help your family, you can, but you just have to come to France. So, Ali gets money from his father and his friends, and sets out on a treacherous 10-day journey to Italy. All of this to achieve this new dream of his. There, he is taken from Italy to France to work in construction. He is now a worker there. He carries heavy things. He does difficult things. He sleeps in a container. He gets barely any food, and he is treated like an animal, and his offender threatens him by saying, if you try to run away, the police will catch you and will send you back to Egypt. He has nowhere to escape. Ali and his co-workers are treated worse than people in prison, because at least people in prison have food and showers. People in prison live a better life than Ali and his co-workers. Ali's life and his co-workers' life was mercilessly stripped away from them. Human trafficking is the illegal exploitation of a person. It is not only an extremely grave crime, but a violation of the values that the EU is built upon. Traffickers exploit vulnerable people, abusing their fundamental right and dignity for the purpose of economic gain. It is a modern form of slavery that must be abolished. Approximately 130 people are trafficked worldwide every hour, and most of these are children. Now, I would like a bit of participation from the audience. Please raise your hand if you think that human trafficking is just prostitution, which, if you don't know, is sexual exploitation. Okay, well, if you didn't raise your hand, you're correct. The reality is that half of the victims in the EU are sexually exploited. The other victims are trafficked for other purposes, including 28% for forced labor and another 3% for criminal activity and forced begging. And one more question. Do you think that human trafficking doesn't happen in the EU? So raise your hand if you think it doesn't. Well, human trafficking is a global problem, and the EU is no exception. According to the latest data, there were 14,311 registered victims within the EU between 2019 and 2020. During the Eyp, during these next 3 days, my committee members and I will find resolutions to some of the most critical aspects of this crime, such as offering victims social, economic, psychological, and physical support, also raising awareness about these atrocities, and finding coordinated approaches to fighting trafficking in person across the European Union. Now, I would like to say that Ali's story is based on true events, and it has a happy ending. He finds help, and he finds people that offer him support and help him overcome his fear. This allows him to go make a report with the police and speak out about what he has experienced. Unfortunately, not every victim's story has a happy ending. Thank you.
Let's welcome Charlotte, who's going to talk about how do we keep a balance between preserving minority languages but also the main language of the country that we're living in. Thank you, Charlotte.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Charlotte Shenfier, and I will be taking part on behalf of the Committee of Cults in the EYP event that is happening over the weekend. My committee consists of defending the regional and minority languages in the EU, putting a clear emphasis in its importance. Language is one of the greatest developments of human race. It allowed us to communicate, express our feelings and thoughts, while also playing a key role in building the culture and identity of its speakers. Unfortunately, nowadays we can see how many regional and minority languages are facing the threat of extinction as the number of speakers gradually diminishes. In fact, over the globe, 128 of these regional languages have been considered endangered and at risk of extinctions. Now let me ask the audience, can anyone think of any regional language surrounding us here in Spain? Go ahead. Yeah, of course, exactly. For perspective, let alone here in Spain, we're surrounded on the daily basis by different regional languages, those including Catalan, Valenciano, Basque, and Galician. For this reason, we do not take action and preserve the minorities and regional languages in Europe. We're letting their speakers' roots vanish through time, and that also means their culture, identity, and knowledge. So what is really the danger? Many of the minorities and regional languages are mainly spoken by small communities in rural areas of Europe, such as Astur-Leones in Spain, for example, only making this factor of endangerment due to several reasons. Firstly, due to the lack of labor opportunities, many families are forced to move to urban areas in search for high-paying employment, which majorly involves the use of international spoken languages, making it much harder for those who employ minorities' languages a chance to find a job. Secondly, their voice may not be acknowledged or taken away. Due to the aging population of local speakers and many of these communities being very dispersed, those regional and minorities languages tend to not have an important organization or voice representing their interest in regional and national politics. Lastly, the lack of promotion of those languages in public. Many of these minority languages often lack of official grammatical and vocabulary conventions, which makes it even harder to promote these languages in public spaces, education, or just to even include them in electronic devices or keyboards. Consequently, this might pose serious issues to those affected, as they might find it difficult to becoming integrated into society where basic services, educational and professional opportunities, and mainstream media exist solely in those national languages. For this reason, more than ever, we must take further action and protect all the languages with our frontier in view of the current alarming situation. What is the European Parliament doing now? In light of this, there have been a few efforts within our continent to fight the endangerment situation of our languages, through methods such as the European Aid for Minority Languages plan implemented in 2019. However, the situation has not improved, as expected, as not enough resources are allocated to the matter, and most importantly, not all regional and national governments are implementing these measures. An example would be France, which refused to implement the European aid, and where still over 75 regional languages still do not place enough resources or legislation in the protection of its preservation. Moreover, there have been several awareness campaigns done by both government and non-governmental organizations, where the purpose was to reduce the stigma. But clearly, the EU has not been doing enough. So what can we do? Awareness is one of the greatest ways to get action. And what I'm doing right now, presenting to all of you and making people aware of this crisis. This is currently happening and will allow organizations and campaigns to be conscious of our situation, in the hope to reach a wider audience and reduce the stigma around this issue. Innovation. The EU can encourage member states to include the study of regional and minority languages in their national education curriculums. This could help raise awareness and appreciation of these languages among the general public and provide opportunities for young people to learn and use them. Finally, the use of technology. The EU can use the technology to support the preservation and promotion of regional and minority languages. This includes developing language learning apps and online resources supporting the development of language technologies, and promoting the use of social media in regional and minority languages. To conclude, the EU is rich in culture and languages, and that is something we should aim to preserve and defend. Currently, minority and regional languages are facing many challenges, such as the increasing impact of globalization and the lack of rural opportunities and official representation. This is why over this weekend, we will go over the problems and issues and hope to find the resolutions against those issues. Thank you so much.
And our final speaker, last but definitely not least, is Laura, who's going to be talking about the role of women in clinical trials, which I know is of particular interest to some of you. Come today.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm guessing everyone in here has been attended by a doctor at least once in their lives. Subconsciously, you're trusting a professional to give you the best care as possible. When they prescribe you medication, you don't really give it much importance, right? You just take it until you feel better. However, certain groups have a minor representation in the process of the creation of these medications, process known as medical trials, which can pose a danger to these people as the responses to these chemicals are barely studied. One of these groups is women. Historically, medical studies have excluded female participants, and research data has been collected from males and generalized to females. Investigators have defended the choice on males and research subjects on the grounds that men are cheaper and easier to study. In women, the menstrual cycle is viewed as a methodological complication during analysis that increases research costs because many more control groups are required due to fluctuation of hormones and the fact that pregnant women should be studied separately. A consequence of extrapolating the results of male-only clinical data to female consumers is that women are typically prescribed dosages that devise for men's average weights and metabolisms. For example, it is known that acetaminophen, an ingredient in many pain relievers, is eliminated at the female body at approximately 60% the rate of elimination documented in men. The administration of drugs to women at dosages designed for men can place women at risk for overdose. Additionally, misdiagnosis is also a big issue. In a study about precision diagnosis of CFT in men and women, 31% of women receive a mental health condition as the most certain diagnosis, compared to 50% of their male counterparts. The European Union has been studying this for years, and some measures are in place regarding this problem. With Horizon Europe, which is an organization which provides funding to the EU, the Commission strengthens its commitment to gender equality by making the possession of gender equality plan an eligibility criterion for all higher education establishments, research organizations, as well as public bodies from member states applying to this program. There are many requirements stated by this organization, but the most important regarding this topic is that organizations must collect sex or gender disaggregated data on personnel and students of the establishments concerned with annual reporting based on indicators. The EU should consider promoting research in diseases that are more prevalent in women and improving representation in clinical trials and research. There should be measures in place that ensure that all researchers specifically study sex differences in the functioning and pharmacokinetic of drugs, which give more accurate data for women. Also, more women should be included in these trials. There should be a minimum of female participants in each study to improve the reliability of the results. So as you can see, this problem has no easy or fast solution. Much more research and efforts are needed to completely overcome all disparities. But with the commitment of member states and a greater focus put in this issue, the EU will work towards a more inclusive and accessible healthcare system for all. Thank you.
Could we have a big round of applause for all of our speakers? I just want to say to everybody, thank you for coming. It's the first time we've done this. As I said, the students have only had their topics for about 6 days. They've been working so hard to research all of the different, very complex topics, and they've been doing such a good job to be prepared for tomorrow. And they're going to be meeting with students from all over the Valencia region. Tomorrow there'll be team building, on Saturday they're going to be debating and coming up with some resolutions to these problems, and on Sunday is the big event where they're going to be debating properly in public, which I know is going to be a bit nerve-wracking, but hopefully today you've had a little bit of practice. So to say, it's the first time well,